Guys, patch day for Iratus Lord of the Dead. So nice to see 2 patches coming quickly after release from Unfrozen. I hope they continue to support the game and give us updates regularly. Looks like the bug fixes were nothing that anybody was abusing too much. The one thing I'll note is that the zombie, I guess his more powder wasn't working properly. I don't think anyone was using this anyway, so if you were thinking about using it and you knew it was broken, well, it's fixed now. Yeah, zombie got some pretty big changes. I'm not really sure whether it's a buff or... Actually, I think it's overall, I think the changes are good for the zombie, but we'll talk about why that's sort of a mixed bag. The first thing that happened is he got a buff on his Q, which is a magic attack that either ignores ward or resistance. That's good. It's 20% straight damage increase, but a little bit further down, I guess we'll talk about why that might not be overall such a great thing for the zombie. The second thing that happened is really impressive. This buckshot ability, that his sort of the AoE physical attack, and that's not something you see too much of, the AoE physical attack. So this immediately becomes one of the better abilities for a physical team to have in its arsenal. He's got a low base damage, but it can be upgraded 8 times, so it goes up pretty high. He doesn't get up as high as some of the magic casters, the Lich, the pure damage dealers. But when you're talking about a 320% multiplier, or even on this, it's a little bit lower, but you're ignoring the armor, so the overall damage might be better. This is a great ability now. This is the sort of thing that I don't know if you build a team around, but you certainly is a reason to put the zombie in there, because one of the problems with physical damage teams, getting rid of all those blocks, this is the sort of thing that you just chuck it out there, you clear 2-3 blocks, and the damage increase you get from not having to work through those blocks with your headhunter or your bride or whatever is doing the real damage on your team. This is really going to help. Where he did get tapped is on this fire explosive, which this went from 3090 to 2575. I don't know if this increase on the Q is going to be enough to make up for it. I think this is really going to hurt the zombie in magic compositions, but we'll have to play with it and see. The other thing that got hit was this bombardment. This was a really good multiplier, 70% for 4 attacks, so that's 280%. They nerfed it down to 65, which I guess that's correct. I don't know. I don't know why they felt they needed to do this. I don't think anybody was abusing bombardment, but they did. And since not too many people were using it, I guess it's not that big of a deal. So overall, I think the zombie was greatly improved with the plentiful buckshot. Slight nerf to use in a magic damage team. Next up, the Dark Knight. Dark Tithe, Dark Cleansing. I think that's his cleanse ability, was it? No, it's this one. Oh, yeah, it is. It's his cleansing ability. So this one doesn't move him back 1 position anymore. That's a nice little quality of life improvement. It's good. It's not a huge buff or anything, but, your Dark Knight's supposed to be in position 1, and you don't want to take a turn off to use a cleanse and then have to, spend 3 mana and a spell to push him back in position. So that's nice. Good to see. I think the same thing happened to the Mummy. Absorb curses. Same idea. This one used to push him back 1 space. Now it doesn't. Great little quality of life. Same thing goes for him as for the Black Knight. So I'm happy to see that. Headhunter. Big beneficiary in this patch. Wow. Catchem and Jagged Hook used to be 80 and this used to be 60. So if you're not familiar with this, basically this does 100% damage to a random enemy, has a 50% chance to stun, ignores block, and moves into the first position. So this was always pretty good. Hooks that target random enemies aren't great, because usually when you want to bust out your hook, you want to, you got a guy in a stance or somebody that you want to pull to the front, and there's a reason why you're doing the hook. So has that chance to stun, ignores block, and it does a reasonable amount of damage. So this might be usable. I still think this is better for a spammable attack, but having this in the toolkit isn't bad. But this, again, 80% instead of 60%, 60% multiplier, when you're taking off, when this one up here is doing 160%, you're losing a ton of damage by switching to, the hook ability. So you really had to think to yourself, do I really want to hook this guy? Or do I just want to, whack him and get to him eventually? So I think this is a nice improvement on this ability. I like the fact that it's usable in the 3rd position, and some of the other changes make a 3rd position Headhunter a lot more attractive. And 3rd position has always been sort of the issue for physical damage compositions. They didn't really have a great 3rd position. The Headhunter, I think, is going to become much better position 3 unit, and a lot of it has to do with this change right here. One thing I wasn't really happy to see was that they nerfed this. It's not a big nerf. I don't think really a lot of people were using the Headhunter for his stress attacks, but it was actually pretty good. It was kind of sneaky good. This used to be 175. This here used to be 100%. So at this point, there's really no reason to use a Headhunter in a stress composition, because I think he was already a little bit behind the other position 2 options. It was already kind of a low dread. This used to move them 1 position back. Now it's 2 positions back. I don't think that really matters. This is nice. It used to push him 1 position back, which is a little awkward to use. I like seeing the removal of the unnecessary positioning switches, so this is good. I think this has potential right here. He's already got a really high damage multiplier that can be upgraded 8 times. This is a high damage character. We've seen with the Lich that random attacks aren't necessarily bad. This is a spammable, though. You could just decide my Headhunter in position 4-3 is just going to do this every turn, and that would be a good thing. This one's sort of a utility one, I think, for clearing wards and such, but this combined with the Jagged Hook, I think you got a position 3, potential stun, 50% stun on one option, plus pull the guy to the front, and your other option is 175% damage to a random unit. I think this is 1-2 punch that you can build around. Next up's the Blood Phantasm. Basically some quality of life things here for the Blood Phantasm, some things to make them less annoying to use. His Q ability no longer can't be cast from the 4th position, so if you do get knocked to the back of the formation and this is your primary attack, you can still cast it and you'll be stepping forward, so that's good. His healing attack ability, where he's dealing 65% damage twice, that is pretty good, right? He's got a low starting base attack, but it can be upgraded 8 times. 65% times 2, obviously 130% multiplier. He's regaining vigor. No longer pushes him back, right? So you can spam this from position 2 now, or even position 1, I suppose. So we'll see. Maybe this is enough to push the Blood Phantasm into a starring role on a physical damage team. So that's very nice to see. Definitely something to try out better. This no longer pushes him back. I don't think that really matters. I think if you were buffing, you're standing in the back anyway. And this one here now pushes you back 2 spaces and can be cast from the 1st position. So the ultimate, I don't think the step back really matters in either instance, or the casting from 1st position, so I think that's sort of a push. But I do like the change on this, no longer pushing the Blood Phantasm around, being able to cast it from the same position consistently. I think that's something to look at and might be an improvement. Next up, the Lost Soul. Huge buff to the Lost Soul. So this ability here is already very strong, 200% to 2 targets with a pull, stress attack. At various points of early access, the Lost Soul was in the running for strongest unit in the game because of her utility in her kit and this particular ability and the way it interacts with the cloud from the Lich. That was a build for a while, and unfortunately, at some point in the early access, they put a movement on him. It's an unnecessary step. I don't remember what was front or back. And I think this used to be castable from the back 3 positions, and they took away the ability to cast it from the last position. So that was bad. I mean, and that took it from Lost Soul being, hey, this is one of the best units, and this is one of the best comps, to this is garbage and unplayable. Well, they've reverted that. Not only have they taken the movement off of it, but they've also allowed it to be cast from the 3rd position. So that might be a thing again. You get your position 2 Lich dropping clouds, your position 3 Lost Soul with the Hero Mania dragging people through the cloud. That's really good. Next change I don't like that much. This is the only magic attack ability that this unit has. So in order to use this unit in a formation, not only are you asking the player to commit to upgrading the attack, but since if you're going to move her away from the space where she can use this ability, you're basically telling the player, you can only do this once, and then you're going to have to find a way to get back into position. And I don't see any way to get back into the position reliably, right? So it's not a reliable magic attack. Nobody's going to use this thing because it's the only magic attack. You use it once, and then you can't attack anymore. I disagree with this. I think they should make this a better attack, something closer to what we have on the Wraith, where his Q ability is just good, right? It's not overpowered. It's just good. Can't even upgrade the darn thing. But if you need a magic attack, I would love to see something like the Cold Grasp on the Lost Soul. What she doesn't need is a movement-based magic attack that I don't think anyone was really using her for this anyway, but this doesn't do anything to help her. Next is Dubious Boon. This is great. No longer moving people around, no longer moving the Lost Soul around the formation. She's able to spam this target gaining a block and a ward, but dealing 10% less damage. This is a powerful ability. Now she can cast it without moving around the formation. That's a buff. With this change here to the Q ability, I think this is going to be sort of a secondary thing, kind of like what you see with the Bone Golem and the Bone Golem's buff here with the block and the ward. Lost Soul does a very similar thing. I think having this stress attack plus the this attack here, plus the heal, you've got the block and a ward, you got an AoE stress attack, you've got a stress attack that has a pull on it. If only we had this magic attack being something that was in a little better form, this tier 1 unit, right? I think this is what's holding her back. I think regardless of that, I think you're going to see her more because of the buffs that have been put into place here. Lots of changes to Dampier, sort of a mixed bag. First, probably most significantly, her Q ability got nerfed from 100 to 80. That's not great. It was great that it ignores armor and block, but yeah, I think Fallen Dampier needed some help, so nerfs aren't really what she's looking for. Again, her Exquisite Thrust, this got nerfed from 125 to 100, so that's not great. It can now target 4th position on the other team, so that's something, right? It's always nice to be able to attack all 4 positions. The Mocking Repose, her sort of weird stance where she does stress damage and then retaliates with physical and this and that. You know, the big problem with this is in order to get it working, you need to upgrade both of these, which I suppose isn't a problem because you can only put 4 into each. It's sort of the same as a normal unit that you might put 8 points into. Yeah, I guess this thing doesn't step back anymore, which is good. So if you did for some reason want to use the Fallen Dampier as like a position 1 counter-attacker, we could try this now without having to worry about her bouncing around. So that's cool. I don't know if it's going to be enough, but we'll see. Next, her Trap. I'm not sure anybody was using the Trap, but if you were, now you can cast it from the 3rd and 4th position. So nice little small quality of life improvement there. And both of her ultimates got the ability to be cast from 3rd and 4th position as well. So that's good, right? I think all these changes to these units that had big restrictions on where they could use their abilities, I think are a plus. So that's good. Overall, I think this nerf, not great. This buff was good. I don't think the Fallen Dampier got enough to push her up from where we've got her in C tier, but we'll have to see. Ghoul got some nerfs and some buffs. The big nerf is on the Savage Instincts. So this physical attack, well, first of all, it can be cast on the 1st position now, which is good. But the damage has gone from 100 to 80, so that's not good. I think that there were some abusive type builds that put buffs and debuffs on the opponents and then use the Ghoul to do significant amounts of damage with this ability. It's possible that you might be able to stand in position 1 somehow and just spam this, when before you had to jump around, so maybe the fact that you can cast it from position 1 offsets the 20% damage reduction. Or it's not really a 20% damage reduction because a lot of the damage comes from the additional damage from the buff and debuff, but it is a nerf. We'll have to see how it works out. I don't think this is a good thing for the Ghoul. But that's the only change that they made, so we'll see. We'll see how that affects her. I don't think a lot of people were using the Ghoul, but the people that were using this ability, so it might have a big impact. Alright, the Unfrozen. This kind of breaks my heart. I think we all know this needed to happen. Big nerfs for the Unfrozen. This guy was straight up busted. We all know it. And the hits were pretty big. So the first thing that happened here is the initiative was reduced from 4 to 0, the base initiative. And then he got additional armor and resistance to compensate. This is a straight 20% damage reduction, right? Because of the way that this works. 5% additional damage essentially for every point of initiative. So losing 4 points of initiative is a straight 20% reduction to damage and losing all the other benefits that you get from high initiative. So that's not great. And then you lose another point of initiative. You used to be able to get a point of initiative on Protective Cold. They did buff the healing ability, so yay, I guess. But yeah, straight 20 to 25% damage reduction on the Unfrozen, and that's going to hurt. That's going to hurt a lot. There were some changes to the Infested. I don't have the Infested, so I have no idea how that's going to affect the game. There were some changes to talents. Infectious Lunacy and Stoke the Flames were both given slight buffs or slight nerfs to the multiplier on their spell power, so they're going to be a little bit less useful. but that was the only change to talents. So the other thing is they've reduced difficulty of both Cakewalk and More Pain. So for the final boss. So I guess that's going to make things a little bit easier for people to finish it up for the first time.